Young gobbos these days, all they do is bang around on their war drums. Whatever happened to good old-fashioned generic goblin noise?
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game finds us back at Kessel Run, and I've got my new Satoru Umezawa deck, keeping Fetid Pools, Arcane Signet, Sire of Stagnation, Swamp, Underground River, Nether Trader, and Ukima. Shane is back playing Donal, keeping an island, a Panharmonicon, Shimmer of Possibility, Deadeye Navigator, Sky Diamond, Cage Sun, and a Cephalid Coliseum. You might remember James from his Aseo deck, and he's playing Toralf today with Pyrotechnics, Sulphurous Blast, Two Mountains, Jaya's Immolating Inferno, Crush the Weak, and Makokoro. Dylan has also brought a new deck with Norika Yamazaki, the Poet, keeping Armored Ascension, Rogue's Passage, Ethereal Armor, Blue Ward, 2 Plains, and a Generous Gift. Dylan wins the die roll and starts us off. Dylan draws and plays a Plains. Shane plays an island. I play a tap Fetid Pools. James plays a mountain, passing back to Dylan. Dylan just plays a tap Demirius Sky Ruin. Shane plays an island and casts Sky Diamond, which comes in tapped. I play a Drowned Catacomb and tap both of my lands for black mana, casting another Trader and passing. James just plays a mountain and passes. Dylan drops another Plains and then taps out in his main phase for his commander, Norika Yamazaki the Poet. Shane has a Cephalid Coliseum for his land drop, and taps out but loses 1 to the Coliseum as he casts a Vidalcan Orrery. I play a Swamp and then cast my commander, Satoru Umezawa. I then head my Nether Trader at James's face, dealing 1 and passing. James draws and plays Makokoro, and once it's out, activates it, letting the table draw a card. He then moves through his phases to discard down to 7 and passes to Dylan. Dylan has a Plains for turn and casts Angelic Destiny, enchanting it onto his commander. He goes to combat and hits James with his commander for 7 commander damage. Shane draws, plays an island, and passes since everything he does has flash. I drop an Exotic Orchard for turn and go to combat. The Nether Trader goes back at James, who can't block it because of Shadow, and before moving to damage, I use Ninjutsu to swap from hand Sire of Stagnation with the Nether Trader. I also get a trigger for using a Ninjutsu ability from my commander, and I look at my top 3 cards, keep the best one, and James then takes 5, and I pass turn. James draws, and pays 3 mana for Seething Song, making 5 more red mana. He then uses some of that to help cast his commander, Toralf, and passes to Dylan. Dylan draws, and in his main phase, uses Swords to Plowshares, exiling my Sire, which has me gaining 5 life. He then safely plays a land with a Plains, and taps 2 for a Blue Ward. He enchants it onto his commander. He announces he feels bad for Shane having no blockers, so he casts Generous Gift and targets the Orrery. Responding to this, Shane flashes out Twinning Staff, losing 1 from the Coliseum. Once that's done, Shane then puts to stack Shimmer of Possibilities, which is a sorcery speed impulse type card, or I guess at this point, basically just an impulse. Once he resolves that, the Orrery is then destroyed. Moving to combat, Norika then hits me for 7. Shane draws and casts Ponder in his main phase. He looks at his top 3, but he decides it's better to shuffle up and hopefully draw into something better. He then taps 4 mana for Panharmonicon, taking another one from the Coliseum and passing to me. My turn has me playing a Swamp, and then casting a Changeling Outcast and recasting the Nether Trader. With nothing else, I pass to James. James draws and counts up his opponent's lands. He activates Makokoro once again, having the table draw another card. He then passes to combat, and Toralf heads at Shane this time for 5 damage. James then passes, discarding down to 7. Dylan untaps and draws. He plays a Plains for turn, and then casts Armored Ascension onto Norika, who's getting bigger with every untap from Dylan it seems. He then moves to resolve Grand Abolisher once that's stuck to her, and I counter it with Jawari Disruption, because we need to be able to interact with his board state on his turn. Moving to combat, he announces he'll swing at Shane, so I decide to save that interaction for another day. Shane untaps and draws. He plays an island for turn, and then takes another point of damage from the Colosseum as he taps 6 to cast a Caged Sun. He names blue as it enters, and passes to me. I draw for turn, expecting a big creature to hopefully cheat out. I then cast a Mind Stone, and moving to combat, swing the Trader at Shane, and the Outcast at James. They each take 1, and in my second main phase, I cast an Ornithopter and pass turn. James draws and plays a Mountain finally. He then activates Makokoro, having the table draw a card. He then goes to combat and swings his commander at Shane, and after Toralf connects for 5, he passes turn. Dylan drops a Rogue's Passage as his land for turn, and then taps 2 mana for SRAM, who seems like a pretty good fit for his deck. He then casts Ethereal Armor for 1 white, enchanting Norika with it, and drawing a card from SRAM. Dylan then casts a Green Ward onto Norika, drawing again from SRAM. He then enchants Toralf with Demotion, drawing yet again. He's not done with the enchantments yet though, and drops an Angelic Renewal, and draws, and then counts up his enchantments to see how big Norika is. Norika has 20 power at this point, and it's a bit overkill as Dylan swings her to take out Shane. Shane puts up a bit of a protest, but is quick to reveal a Palinchron, Deadeye, and Skullclamp in his hand once he's dead. Dylan then passes with the satisfaction you can only find by killing a blue player, and at the end of turn, I crack my Mind Stone to draw a card. I play an Underground River for turn, and go to combat. I swing the Outcast and Trader at Dylan, neither of which can be blocked. Before damage, I ninjutsu out Grazalax Illithid Scholar, and it comes in tapped and attacking for the Nether Trader. I get my trigger from using ninjutsu ability from Satoru, keeping one of my top 3, and then draw a card as Grazalex sees itself and the Outcast connecting. In my second main phase, I cast an Arcane Signet and pass turn. James untaps and draws. He plays a Mountain for turn, and asks for how many tapped lands there are. He then casts one of my favorite red spells, Mana Geyser, and makes 13 red mana. He then uses 2 of it for a double cast once it's resolved. He then casts Jaya's Immolated Inferno, putting 9 into the X, and just starts blasting. He picks targets for the first copy with Satoru, SRAM, and Dylan's face being selected. He has the splashover damage from Toralf also going at Dylan for an extra 12. James is able to pick different targets for the second copy, picking my face, the Changeling, and Dylan as well. He has the 8 extra damage from the Changeling going at Dylan and takes him out. Moving to combat, he then hits me with Toralf for 5. I play an island and hit James with Grazalax for 3. I draw from the Illithid's ability, and then pass, discarding down to 7. James draws and plays a Mountain. He casts Crush the Weak, taking out Grazalax, who gets exiled upon death as part of the spell's ability. Toralf then goes at me again for 5, but I block 2 of it with Ornithopter. James then passes, and I flash out a Notion Thief. I untap, draw, and recast the Nether Trader. I then drop Ukema, Stalking Shadow, and go to combat. We've got a real back and forth going on, as I swing 4 damage at James in a race against life totals. James untaps and draws. 3 mana is tapped for a Geistflame Reservoir, and he goes at me with Toralf. I block with Ukama, taking 3 more commander damage, but I also deal 2 to James with Ukama's Leave the Battlefield trigger and gain 2 life. My main phase has me casting a Triton Shorestalker because clearly unblockable creatures are something I have a shortage of right now, and follow with a Blighted Agent because, yep. Moving to combat, 4 more damage goes at James. In my second main phase, I cast a Dimir Keyruin because unblockable mana rocks are clearly important to me. James activates his Reservoir in his main phase after drawing, and exiles an Iron Mirror off the top. He goes to combat, swinging at me with Toralf. I block with the Blighted Agent and Shorestalker, stopping 2 of it, and then taking 3 more commander damage, but at least I get to put a -1/-1 counter onto Toralf. I draw for turn and recast my commander. I animate the Keyruin to make it a creature, and go at James for 6 and pass. James once more activates his Reservoir after drawing a card he isn't so happy with. He exiles a mountain, which won't help him too much. He swings Toralf at me, and while it's still not lethal, I let it all go through. My turn has me drawing and counting at my power, and I try to figure out how to take out James. I see a line, I think, and animate the Keyruin and go all out at him with all of my creatures. For the most part there are no blocks, but at the end of Declare Attacker step, James casts Glorious End, just straight up ending my turn. This allows James to untap and draw for turn, and goes to combat and gets me with commander damage as he swings Toralf at me to finish the game. Game review time. So, I think like many of you, I wasn't expecting Glorious End to do me in, but it was pretty cool to see, and I loved how basically it was either win or lose, all on James's turn. I was frankly a little bit surprised that he won, considering when he sat down with the Toralf deck, he basically told us that he wasn't playing a lot of the damage-based board wipes that his commander is known for. I was actually pretty impressed with Norika, despite the fact that he didn't actually use her ability when she attacked alone. We did film a second game with her though, where he used the ability more often, and it was quite a sight to behold. Shane's Donal deck didn't seem particularly threatening early on, but when we saw what was in his hand and what was coming up, it certainly made a lot more sense. With the Palinchron, Deadeye, and Skullclamp, he would have been able to make infinite mana, then cast his commander, and as he cast Palinchron, kept getting 1/1 versions of it that he could Skullclamp and draw out his library. He'd then presumably be able to find another way to finish off the game, like an Aetherflux Reservoir, or even just milling us all out. I'm reserving my judgment on Satoru Umezawa. I'm not entirely sure this is the Dimir commander that I want to be playing, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I did my Garuda deck. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.